You might have noticed that I've been somewhat avoiding this series. Because like when the first Sword Art Online was released in Japan and actually completed its run, I was on that so fast. Because you gotta go fast! The last episode aired and boom, there's my review. But this sequel, I let it pass me by. Why? Because I didn't really care. Allow me to repeat a line that I said in a recent video of mine with a minor tweak. In that Sword Art Online is a beautiful looking, wonderfully sounding series with a story that doesn't know where it's going and characters so uninteresting and unrelatable that I would rather sit down and read the Harry Potter fanfiction, My Immortal. Pro tip, don't Google that. You'll thank me later. I'm just trying to verbalize my displeasure. My Immortal isn't worth the clicks. Suffice it to say that I didn't really like it a whole lot, and the prospect of watching more didn't really appeal to me. But then I put it on a list for the Review Week of Awesome, and again, here we are. And so, ladies, gentlemen, and others, my name is Arcada, and welcome to Glass Reflection. Today, the 2014 series from A1 Pictures, Sword Art Online 2. Let's jam. So before I actually sat down to watch this show, I made up a list of things that, if this second season improved upon, I would be able to recommend it to people. Things from the first season that I hoped could be fixed, but not like retroactively fixed. So like, don't retcon anything. It dug its own hole, it needs to get out of it. But at the same time, don't fall deeper into that hole by doing the same things over again. There are three main things on that list. First, story structure. Don't jump all over the place and then get bored when it's not working out. The first arc in SAO is what I'm referring to here. It started off amazingly with the first few episodes, but then spent 4 or 5 with a bunch of time jumps and filler plot lines before getting back to the meat of it. And even then not really delivering on what was shown to be promising on the outset. Before, seemingly getting bored and is all, well, we're done here, let's move on to another MMO. Yeah, don't do that. It was dumb then, and it would be even worse if you did it again. Actually come up with some story structure, please. Second thing is about our main character, Kirito. Either A, drop him as the main character because honestly, he would work better as a supporting character, or at the very least, don't make him a walking Mary Sue. A perfect at everything because he feels like it wish fulfillment power fantasy. He is a character that far too often in the original season just pulled Deus Ex Machinas out of his ass because the writers couldn't think of a better way for him to solve problems. I want a character I can relate to because a character that can more or less do whatever he wants without too much effort isn't very relatable. Also, drop those character arcs about him dealing with tragedy. The ones that give him friends but then kill them off because then he would be sad. Those only induce character development if he actually learns and changes from the experience, which he never really did. Overall, just make it so that by the end of the series, he's not the same person that he was at the beginning of the series, just with a rather large harem of female characters. Which leads to the last thing on my list, and I'll make it quick since I know I'm spending way too much time on the original SAO and not the sequel. Don't introduce female characters just to fill a niche that does not currently exist in the Kirito fantasy harem. If you are going to give me another female character, do so in a way that makes her badass in her own right and not tied to Kirito's awesomeness. So I thought if it could fix those three problems, then I would like the show a lot more. Well, I guess 1 out of 3 ain't bad. So like the story arcs in the original, here in SAO we're introduced to a brand spanking new MMO, Gun Gale Online. Unique in that, unlike the last 2 MMOs, this one is a nitty-gritty, gun-focused PvP MMO. Though in reality I pause to call it an MMO because really all we see are battles from it, and sometimes the town. So really it's about as much of an MMO as Destiny is, which ain't much. Anyway, in GGO, there is this rather shady-looking player who has the ability to shoot a person in-game and have their real bodies killed on the other end. Because, the element of real death has to be added into this franchise somehow. But what I found funny is that he calls himself and his weapon Death Gun, and then his victims die of heart attacks. If no one else made the Death Note connection here, I just made it for you. Anyway, because he has significant experience in solving problems such as this, the Japanese government has asked Kirito to transfer into the game and do some investigation so as to properly identify Death Gun and hopefully bring him to justice. From a story perspective, this arc is actually surprisingly solid. Like, it's not perfect, obviously, but it is still leagues better than anything we had from Season 1. The pacing is done in a much better way, and it actually focuses on the problem shown in Episode 1. Stop Death Gun, which by the end of the first arc, they sort of do. Spoilers. Kirito was helped in this endeavor by a native player of GGO, a female sniper by the name of Shion. And I'm not gonna lie, Shion is probably my favorite character in the entire franchise. She has this proper level of badassness relative to her perceived experience, but even then she is not all-powerful and godly. She may be a sniper, but she is not a one-shot, one-kill kind of character, and any challenge she faces requires a decent amount of internal strategy. As such, her intro in episode 2 was amazing, and I honestly wish that that is what I could have expected from the rest of the show. In fact, it is my belief that if she was the main character and not a supporting one, then this series would have been bloody amazing. As it stands, oh look, you just fell deeper into the hole, didn't you? As much as her personality and relatability is on point, her actual designs prove what she's really there for, because Kirito's harem already has a loli, a large-chested brocon, and at least 2 tsundere, so why not have an emotionally traumatized girl with an ass design that looks like it belongs in a Magic the Gathering competition? To be fair, she doesn't instantly join his harem, but she becomes second fiddle far more quickly than I would have liked. Because, you know, Kirito is the Lord God, praise be unto him, and how dare some other character try to take the spotlight away from him when lives are at stake? She totally joins the harem by the end of the second arc, though, and I'm quite sure that all of the other female characters are pleased as punch to have more competition. Kirito himself is actually a lot less consistent, unless I'm misremembering things. He quickly jumps between calm and collected to arrogant and asshole-ish to emotionally traumatized at the drop of a hat. And sometimes this happens fast enough to give me whiplash. There were 2 things that didn't help this that much. First was his female-looking avatar for GGO. I'm not sure if this was an attempt to circumvent the idea that he's building a harem, or perhaps to show that he has a feminine side for whatever it's worth. But in the end, considering that he is still a male character just with feminine looks, all that this really accomplishes is allows him to easily fit into those really dumb, erotic moments for the lulz. And don't get me started on the female act that he puts on for almost no reason.
Hey guys. Hope y'all root for me.
Yeah, you got it. Good luck out there. I bet my life savings on you.
The other thing that didn't help was the shoehorned in plot about some deeply tragic event that took place during the timeline of the original SAO. A tragic event so important that they feel the need to bring it up almost every 5 minutes in this show, but so unimportant that we never actually got to see it in SAO when it supposedly happened. So apparently in the first season there was this raid against a rather dangerous PK guild that ultimately ended up with Kirito killing one of the PK members in self-defense. The series uses this to try and tie him into Shion's personal storyline, to try and make everything relevant. But it's almost like the opposite of retconning, because they give us this event that we never saw, and for some reason it defines his character for a large part of this season. It didn't make too much sense to me either, because it's not like Kirito killing people was necessarily a new thing. He did kill people in the first season. It happened. But I guess they wanted to give him a truly tragic event so that he could better relate to Shion or something, I don't know. And also, because I haven't yet, this is the part of the video where I inform you, without making reference to when in either season it happens, that SAO has learned jack shit about how to treat female characters in regards to scenes involving explicit sexual assault. Moving on. Now, the show's second arc is back in LAO, for the most part. I have to say, doesn't feel like filler, and it is also the best damn storyline that SAO has shown. And no, I'm not talking about the actual second arc, the one with Excalibur. That doesn't really count as an arc to me, because that really is filler. But the real second arc I like, mainly because Kirito is a backbencher, and Asuna returns, taking the protagonist role for the duration of it. As far as Asuna goes, in the first season, they kept changing her role, from a badass to a token tsundere to a literal bird in cage that needed to be rescued. But this personal development for her here makes up for a lot of that. It frames Asuna in a very relatable light beyond Kirito's trophy wife. And this arc even introduces some exceedingly good secondary characters to tell a story that SAO hasn't tried to show us before. And quite frankly, it was a breath of fresh air. Specifically, it even adds a female character who is a badass swordswoman so good that she can even beat the Lord Kirito himself. Praise be unto him. And that alone makes it worth the watch, because it was just really, really great, and not something that I was expecting from Sword Art Online. Now, if honestly they only had that mindset with the GGO arc, then this probably would have been one of my favorite animes that I have watched as of late. But alas, Kirito hasn't changed much, and neither has my opinion of him, so that's where we stand. Now honestly, my opinion, as far as the animation goes, hasn't really changed from Season 1. Everything looks amazing. Even given this new setting of the gritty world of GGO, it still looks wonderful. It's really one of the reasons that I would ever tell somebody to watch this show. Like, overall, it's not Ufotable or Madhouse on a film budget, but still, the quality here is astounding. And it is damn impressive when it wants to be. The fight scenes, as well, like before, are nothing short of breathtaking at times. They have this fluidity to them that is rarely seen in anime, and it's not just fluidity for fluidity's sake. Like, you can still do that and have it be awful. Cough, cough, Samurai 7, cough. But the fights are fluid while still retaining the same level of detail that you've come to expect from the show. The soundtrack sees the return of Yuki Kajiura as the main composer. Though really, I don't feel like anything from her SAO repertoire is particularly noteworthy. None of it is bad, because she's one of those composers that always gives at least decent music. So none of it is terrible. But a lot of the music that is used just feels like it's taken from Season 1 and tweaked slightly. And as for the rest of it, the more original sounding things, well, it just sounds like a lot of the stuff that she's been composing as of late. Like, I've talked previously on how I feel like her music has sounded very similar for the last good number of years. In the past, specifically in her work with the Dot Hack franchise, there was always this experimental vibe to it. It felt as if there was this level of darkness or depression that it wanted to invoke. And technically, this has worked for a lot of the shows that she's been the composer of, like SAO, but also things like Madoka and Fate Zero. And it works because this dark undertone fits the mood. I just feel like it's lost the experimental element that her music used to have. And as such, there's only so much variety with this dark tone that she seems to be able to produce. Specifically in the cases of like Fate Zero and Kara no Kyokai, the music sounds really similar, almost to the point where, unless you really know the music, you might not be able to differentiate which show they come from. Now, in the sound design department, which I rarely talk about, there was a lot of really good work done in terms of Foley. It's the kind of thing that would pass you by, mostly because good Foley is invisible. So as an example, watch this clip and pay special attention to the sound effects. Like, do you hear that? Even in just the variety of sword clangs that go on, even that little chink when one of them slightly adjusts their weapon. This is impressive to me because honestly, it's not something they ever needed to do. They could have just done like the most basic of Foley and sound design and said, hey, you know, the settings in MMO, and in MMOs they don't have all this Foley and amazing sound effects. They usually just have the clunk, 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 clunk. That's just the same sound repeated over and over again. We could just do that. But they didn't. They spent the time and they actually made it sound good. So that impressed me. Now, I wasn't able to talk about the dub last time, mainly because when I reviewed SAO, the dub didn't exist. And here's the thing, I was actually really looking forward to the dub, especially considering the cast list. Like, I know people complain that Bryce Papenbrook has been in almost anything, but he really does do good work. I also recently praised Shirmi Lee in her role in Shiki, and Michelle Ruff as Shion? Hell yes! Like, I haven't heard her voice in anything recently, but at least it's refreshing to hear her voice in something other than Bleach. Not that I watched Bleach or anything. Unfortunately, though, I turned off the dub and switched to sub just after starting the series. As for the reason why, well, I don't really know if I have a good explanation for it. Maybe it would be easier to explain if I knew about the inner workings of ADR, direction, and production. But everything just kind of felt stiff. If I tried to place it, the best I could say is that I don't think that the stiffness was the cause of the actors, but rather the scripts that they were given. Possibly, though, a combination of both. It could be that some of these voices do sound a lot older than the characters actually look. Add that in with the vocabulary that doesn't really fit my perspectives of these characters, and yeah, I guess that's probably why I would say that it might have been jarring to me. Now, if that is indeed the reason why I found it jarring, then the solution for you would just be to not watch it in sub beforehand, so your preconceptions of the characters are not already established. But unfortunately, I watched SAO when it was in sub only, so I didn't get that option. Now, does SAO 2 redeem the franchise? No, it does not. It almost did, but again, it keeps falling into the same traps, and now at this point, I don't think it can ever actually recover from it. Kirito as a character is the crux of my problem with the show. If they do make another season, I hope that they move him to a more supporting role, but I'm sure anybody who has actually read the original novels could actually tell me that no, they don't actually do that. But don't tell me. I don't really want to know. As far as guessing if another season's going to happen, a third season, I honestly expect that it will. This franchise is internationally popular and financially successful. But then again, if it doesn't get another season, I wouldn't be surprised by that either. Anime getting multiple seasons outside traditional shonen is quite rare. A lot of shows like this only get one season, so to have 2 seasons is quite unique already. And also, to reiterate, the second arc of this season did not, how should I put it, redeem the franchise in my eyes, but it definitely made it so that if they do make a third season, I would probably watch it a lot sooner than I did this one. Similar to Guilty Crown though, I would say that SAO 2 and SAO in general is only worth watching so that you have something bad to compare better things to.
But you gave SAO 1 a 7.5 out of 10. That doesn't sound like you hated it to me. Especially when you gave shows that you supposedly did like a lower rating like Chobits and Future Diary. You don't know what you're talking about and deserve my internal hatred.
Yes, you do actually have a point about that. When I reviewed the original Sword Art, I had just started using a numerical rating system, and how I did it was that everything was weighed equally. So even though you had a crap story and crap characters, the animation and the sound and just this feeling of enjoyment, this ability to watch the show and be entertained, even though I knew what I was watching was crap, all of that put together raised the number up higher than it probably should have been. Like, it sounds dumb that a show that I hate so much got a 7.5 out of 10, and I will agree with you on that. It's one of the reasons why, as you may have noticed, I stopped using the numerical scoring over a year ago, and it was because of this sort of problem right here. So no, it's never coming back. So ultimately, SAO 2 only satisfied 1 out of the 3 things that I was hoping that this season would change. Though if you ignore the first arc, technically, it resolved all 3, but I can't just ignore that first arc, so I'm not going to. I will, though, not completely write it off because of that. Just don't expect me to be singing its praises. And so, with all that in mind, I present Sword Art Online 2 with the recommendation to stream it rather than buy. Like I said before, it's good to watch this sort of thing to better appreciate shows that are better written than this one is, and also, you know, of course, to actually enjoy the good parts that this show has to offer. You just don't need to go out of your way for it. It's not worth that much. At the time of this video, SAO 2 has been licensed by Aniplex of America and is available in both DVD and Blu-ray from them. It is also available on the Crunchyroll streaming service in sub only for absolutely free if you prefer that option. Hulu as well, technically, though it's American only. Link in the description as per usual, crunchyroll.com/classreflection for a free trial of Crunchyroll's premium services and all the anime awesomeness that it contains if you want to take a look at it, though full disclosure, it is not necessary in order to watch SAO. For alternate anime recommendations, I first point you towards the obvious Log Horizon, a series identical in its initial plot to SAO, but it's much better in both its MMO setting and its relatable and enjoyable characters. Second recommendation goes to Batum for having a similar feel as the GGO arc, as far as weapons and so forth, but again, I feel like Batum did it better. Except, you know, for that whole cliffhanger ending thing that it did, which was a dick move, so fair warning about that. Between those two, though, you should hopefully find something to your liking. And that's it from me. Please subscribe if you enjoyed the video, follow me on Twitter if you feel so inclined, and hey, if you like what I do here and feel like helping out, please consider going and checking out my Patreon page, and if you feel it within your heart, also consider donating. Very special thanks to Just a Human. A human? Yes, a human. Just a human. Yes, thank you for donating already. You are supremely, supremely awesome. And until next time, ladies, gentlemen, and others, stay frosty.